Hey everybody, welcome in. It's Tuesday, and that means Octa time. Big thank you to the moderators on the channel and everybody else for joining me on this Tuesday. And warning, this could get a little bit spicy in parts because we will be talking about hard assets. So let's get into it. And also some of the stuff that's surging right now. It's pretty bonkers. Thank you, Shawnee and TND Tesla and K8 for all being here. This one is called Altseason Surge and not financial advice, as always. And shout out to Vitru for your life. My dad is on your Patreon, and so is his. Let me make sure I read this. His business partner, and we all watch you. That's awesome. And I know business partner isn't exactly family, but sometimes it can be. And as I always say, the family that invests together stays together. So well done, family. Let's get into the ugly news first. There is quite a bit of ugly and bad news first, despite the fact that things are looking pretty strong. Bitcoin's above 119K, and alts have skyrocketed, which is fantastic. But anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. But first, unlocks. As you can see here, the usual unlock candidates always here. Speaking of ENA, Athena, every week it's here with an unlock. Venom 3%, Tribal 9%, Optimism. Layer 2s every week, 2% unlock. It's crazy. SUI 0.3%, etc. But I won't dwell too much on that because odds are you don't hold those things. Now, I will get into the bad news and I will get a little bit spicy here. First of all, shout out to Sylvain. Is the UK becoming the next Germany? The UK is reportedly looking to sell $6.7 billion of seized Bitcoin to plug their budget gap, according to the Telegraph. Now, this is what I warned you about, the bit of a rant. Okay, bravo, UK. And I have a lot of people in the UK. Actually, UK is one of my top countries on a per capita basis that watch this channel. But another stroke of genius by a government drowning in red ink. All they can decide to do is sell their hardest assets. I think they have 61,000 Bitcoin seized from some shady scheme way back. I don't know when it was. But why don't you use your money printer to print some of that sterling to plug the hole in the debt? It's only going to get worse as your deficits. And I do want to go back to the 90s. And there was a guy called Gordon Brown, and he sold, I think half of the UK gold reserves. I'm not sure, but this is 30 years ago. Sold half of the UK gold reserves at rock bottom prices. Okay, now, what's crazy about 30 years ago, half the gold, the price of gold, if I'm not mistaken, was about $350 30 years ago. It has 10x'd in 30 years. Okay, absolutely bonkers. It's gone from, say, 350 to 3,500. So even if they held the gold for 30 years, they would have 10x their money. And we know Bitcoin's going to do a lot better. So if you do have a contact in Parliament or whoever makes those decisions, urge them to print some more money. Their deficits will only get worse. And plugging the hole by selling the hardest asset they have makes no sense. These are the countries that have Bitcoin. You can see China, USA is apparently number 1, China number 2, both approximately 200K, and UK number 3, 61K. UK hold that podium position, and Ukraine number 4, about 45K. John, thank you. And then Bhutan is mining Bitcoin like crazy, and El Salvador has a nice big bag too. It's nice to see Bhutan and El Salvador at number 5 and number 6, and Finland. Shout out to anybody in Scandinavia. The Finnish are there too, and that is just awesome. But again, what will the results of this be? If the UK sells their Bitcoin, they sold half their gold already. 17.1% said endless meme mockery like we see for Germany. Shout out to our German friends too. I know it's not your fault. It's the people that run your counties or your whatever they are. Anyway, missing future gains, 63.4%. This is the problem. We know Bitcoin's going to $1 million. Okay, they've got 61,000 of them. That will be a very big bag. And yes, as Leisure Real Estate says, Germany sold their Bitcoin a while back. I think it was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But they sold 50,000 Bitcoin at very close to $50,000. Big mistake. Anyway, left a lot of money on the table. Now, this is another one that was not on my bingo card. I did warn you about the bad news. Ether is back near the upper end of its trading range again from Peter Schiff. If you own any, this is a great time to sell. As much as it pains me to say, selling Ether and buying Bitcoin with the proceeds is better trade than holding Ether. Again, that was not on my bingo card. Maybe Peter Schiff is coming around to Bitcoin. I'm not sure, but that was interesting. Anyhow, in other crazy news as well, this is, got to move my little camera to the bottom right. XRP is now valued at $12 million per user. Okay, Ethereum is valued at $1 million per user. If you take the market cap, you divide it by the number of daily active users, you get this number. And Solana is 20,000 per user. So you can see here, craziness continues in crypto. But if, and another crazy stat too, if Solana traded with the market cap of Ethereum, it'd be worth over $1,000 today, which is not bad. Remember, Solana does 10x more than Ethereum does in terms of users, way like 6,000% more in terms of transactions, and 7,000% more in terms of DEX volume. Again, it's crazy. But one day we shall see if cream floats to the top. And the final piece of bad news, everybody, actually not the final piece, the next to final piece. I did warn you, U.S. housing market is the most unaffordable ever. Okay, so if you're thinking of selling your Bitcoin to buy a house, maybe not a good time to do that. I do say everybody should have their own castle, but maybe not right now, not in this season. And you can see as well, multifamily housing delinquency near all-time highs, which means we could be on the verge of a crash-a-rooney if the Fed keeps rates high. They are destroying businesses, the ability to borrow money, the cost of servicing debt. Commercial real estate's dead, residential real estate's dead. And remember, around those industries are tons of other ancillary cottage industries like mortgage brokers, bankers, appraisers, real estate agents. Everybody's getting clobbered right now, all because Jerome Powell is still there and he's still stubborn. He still wants to have his Volcker moment and bring inflation down to a magical 2%. But now the odds on Polymarket of him being out in 2025 are only 18%, which is low. If you read some of the news you think on Twitter, you think he would have been whacked hours ago. Never mind, only an 18% of him being out this year. But Scott Bessent is on the case, and he is going to do a big investigation, which is going to be fascinating. Now, at last, the good news, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for waiting. Sorry to get all that ugly stuff out of the way. Fear and greed is still very high at 71 for crypto. That's good. People are still bullish. And some of the numbers say that as well. We have hit nearly 4 trillion crypto market cap. Remember, this is important because my 2025 target for the CMC in my predictions was $5 trillion. Come on, we can do it. One more 25% gain across the whole of crypto, we get to 5 trillion. And that would be amazing. Shout out to Econometrics as well for this chart. The orange is 60%. Okay. 4 trillion of that market cap is made up of Bitcoin, nearly 2.4 trillion. And that is that is huge. And 10 years ago, the entire crypto market cap was valued at $1 billion. And you can see how things have changed over time. Blue is stablecoins. Yellow is everything other than Ethereum and Bitcoin. And you can see the Ethereum slice has grown a little bit after being very, very small in early 2025. And that one came back with a vengeance. And let's look at the crypto over the last 7 days since I last did this. ETH down 2.2% versus Bitcoin. XRP up 19%. Solana up 27%. Cardano up a bit. Litecoin, Avalanche, Doge did really, really well too. And in terms of dollar terms, this is slightly out of date right now because Bitcoin's moving fast. Bitcoin has shot up $2,200 today. It's now at 119.6. I literally took this screenshot minutes ago. It's already gone up $800. So apologies. But anyway, well, you can see how despite the week we've had, we're probably positive now for the last 7 days for Bitcoin. And that's awesome. And everything else is doing well too. But what you see here in this chart is the amount of green. And that is over the last week, altcoins have smoked Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is pretty much at break even. Now let's look at the money flow. This is quite fascinating too. I always say follow the money, follow the users, follow the developers. That's key. But digital assets saw an all-time high of inflow of $4.4 billion. Year to date, 27 billion. AUM, 220 billion. That's nearly $250 billion, ladies and gentlemen. That's massive. Massive. Okay. Now, year to date, 27 billion. Again, another forecast I had for 2025 was we would break to $50 billion in asset inflows into crypto. We are more than halfway there, but we're also more than halfway through the year. So we'll see if we get a big run, but this could be huge. And this will definitely take the crypto market cap to $5 trillion, because when you take your crypto dominance and you multiply it by the 5 trillion, all our bags will go up. That's why it's exciting. Doo-hoo. Thank you, Michael Newstrom, as well. I appreciate you. Yes, it's hard work, but the appreciation that I have from all of you make it all worthwhile every single day. Every single day. Thank you all. Let's look at the flow by assets. It tells an interesting picture. Again, Ethereum did very well too, pulling in $2 billion last week. And the past 13 weeks, it has done 23% of assets under management. Again, the last quarter, Ethereum has smoked it. And people say, well, why is Ethereum running so fast? Well, a couple of reasons. One, all the regulation, I believe, has prompted investment in crypto, especially from TradFi. Traditional money on the sidelines has now jumped into crypto. And they look at Bitcoin, they think, it's run, but you know what hasn't run yet is the second biggest asset, Ethereum. And they think that's a good opportunity. And also you have Tom Lee on the TV every single day pumping Bitmine and Ethereum too. So that's where we are. And Ethereum has done very well because of it. But the last week, it has slowed down, which is interesting. Bitcoin sucked in 2.2 billion. Solana, XRP, and Sui were notable. 39 million into Solana, 36 million into XRP, and 9 million into Sui. All in all, record week, everybody. Record week. Look at these charts. Boom, boom. That's special. Crypto is real now. Thank you all for being patient. Now let's look at this little chart here. This is from the Crypto Compendium. Gives you a visual of what did best last week. And despite the tokenomics of Athena being terrible, it did well last week. And so did Doge. And so did Kaspa. Three things I wouldn't touch in a million years, but that's just me. And they're doing very well. Even Ethereum Classic beat Ethereum. Sol beat Ethereum. Chainlink, good play, beat Ethereum. So you can see things are creeping up as well. On the far right-hand side, though, Hype was the worst performer for the week. But that did go on a rampage, up from 35 cents to 50 cents, I think. No, from $35 to $50. Sorry, getting my little numbers confused. And it has taken a bit of a breather over the last 7 days. Now, some more perspective that's interesting. And I think it was James Check that kind of inspired this, or somebody had a chart that showed you the last 5 years of performance for different assets. But it didn't include MicroStrategy. It included, obviously, NVIDIA. Everybody loves NVIDIA, Tesla, Bitcoin, etc. But I decided to throw in MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy over the last 5 years is up over 4,000%. NVIDIA up 3,000%. And then, what's the blue one again? Bitcoin up 1,200%. And Tesla up 1,080%. So all of these things are great. But then I decided to throw in another asset too. Solana up 23,000% compared to the others over the last 5 years. So again, time in the market is special. And sometimes it does make sense to take a flyer on small little altcoins because the gains can be crazy. And I know you can see the red line from Solana there, a very choppy chart. I mean, if you compare it to the previous market, it had one big run up. But this run, we had one run up and then the post-presidential election run up. And we're on the third run up now again. Third time's a charm. I love threes. I think this could be a special run this time. We shall see. Now, other perspective, And again, this is from Econometrics, share this chart. This is as of data of July 3rd or 5th, if I recall. But you can see here the top two performers as well over the last 12 months are Bitcoin and gold. Of course, it doesn't include MicroStrategy, but that's okay. But then you can see the other assets, Shanghai, Chinese market, not good. Copper, third best asset. Crude oil took it in the shorts, but Ethereum did worse until the last week or two. Then it's done. The last, I think, 2 weeks ago, it had a big rampage, and that changed everything. But that's just the perspective of the last year as of a point of time. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin, good news, still no overheating whatsoever from the MVRV Z-score. And we are basically middle of the road, ladies and gentlemen. We keep a close tab on this because it lets us know whether or not it makes sense to expose yourself to more Bitcoin or take a little bit off. And there's a lot of stories out there of people taking some off and whales moving Bitcoin to exchanges and all that stuff, but don't sweat that too much. Now, another key chart that I love to look at is the 200-week moving average. Why do we care? Because historically, at least since 2013, Bitcoin has spent very little time under the 200-week moving average. And a lot of people believe it's a floor for the bear market. It's something like less than 1% or 2% of trading days are actually spent down here. Now, we did have a bit of time down here in 2022, late 2022, when we got kicked in the teeth. But then we quickly rebounded above the 200-week moving average. Remember, 200 weeks is about 4 years. So it's a long window of time, but it's a good moving average. And the reason we care is for the first time in history, Bitcoin 200-week moving average is above $50,000. The reason I mention this is rarely do we go below this in the bear market. Not saying we'll even get close. I think it's a different time because of Treasuries and ETFs and pension funds and everybody's stacking Bitcoin and it's so scarce. However, a lot of people are worried. It's like, oh, what happens if Bitcoin goes down? Will that affect MicroStrategy? No. MicroStrategy only get into trouble, perhaps, if the price falls to like under 20,000. In fact, Michael Saylor said yesterday, even if the Bitcoin price goes to $30,000, they have no problem servicing all their debt for decades. So again, ignore the FUD that's out there. Look at the facts. This one puts in a floor now for Bitcoin at 50K. So that could be your new bottom. I do believe 70K is the new bottom because history tells you that the day before the election is the bottom floor of the price, and that was 70K. So we'll see where it goes. Speaking of other sell levels too, because this is Octa, we look at a lot of on-chain charts and technical analysis. This is I love the work that Axel does. Shout out to Axel from Crypto Quant. But as of today, the price is 119,702. We could nearly hit 120K on this stream. Woohoo. That'd be fun. But Bitcoin now at 119, 120K is still in the growth zone between the investor price median, which is 92K, and the hype alert level, 139K. Buying is still happening. We just saw record money flows last week, and they are continuing to add to their positions. And the treasuries are going nuts right now. And at the same time, there has been zero excessive optimism. Check out the MVRV, all that type of stuff. And what's very interesting here is the euphoria zone, as I call it. But this is where the sell level could be at 162K. We'll see if we get that high. No promises. This is Axel's sell level chart. I like it. 139 would be fantastic. 160 would be even better. But remember, risk happens fast. When these things happen, they can spike up and they can spike down just as quick. And shout out to WisdomTree as well, a TradFi firm, big money runner and ETF issuer. They recommend 3% Bitcoin allocation for all 60-40 portfolios. Hold on a second. I thought 60-40 was dead. Apparently not, but Bitcoin does reduce risk and drives huge returns. That is from TradFi firm WisdomTree. Again, 3%. It began with BlackRock a year ago saying you should have 2% allocated to Bitcoin. Other firms are recommending 5 to 20%. Some even 40%. And now this firm is at 3%. So this is going to creep up. Soon it'll be 5%, etc. But this is really, really positive for the investment advisors out there who work with clients that have a lot of money, they read this and they say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you have $1 million. We're going to put 3% of that into Bitcoin. And they'll say, why? Well, because WisdomTree said so. That's how this works. Now, speaking of TradFi, JP Morgan just blessed Bitcoin as pristine collateral. And they are setting up a unit that will let you borrow against your Bitcoin to buy things like real estate. This is huge. And the reason we care about this is not borrowing against your Bitcoin, but the fact that a lot of people have to sell their Bitcoin to buy a house. Houses are expensive. But now, at least you've got access to collateral to be able to fund that price without selling your hard asset, which is wonderful. That's why we care. And if things couldn't get better, there's a big IPO expected at the end of this month, which is very interesting. I think it was Adobe tried to buy them for $20 billion 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And that deal fell apart. But they're filing for their IPO at the end of this month. It was revealed that they are holding $70 million in a Bitcoin ETF on their balance sheet. 70 million of Bitcoin. I know it's not large, it's about 700 Bitcoin, but still, having a company like this that soon will be worth billions is already pre-IPO socking money away into Bitcoin. That is special. So thanks, Vivek, for that one. Now, Altseason, we made it. We're at 57 right now, and the rebound has been huge. Just as I always say, risk happens fast. This thing just went up vertical real quick. Let's look at the assets over the top 50 over the last 90 days. A thing called Pengu, which I remember hearing that term years ago with Ivan on DCA. I was like, Pengu, what the hell is that? But anyway, Ivan must be doing very well because he has probably big Pengu bags. Hype over the last 90 days as a number 2 player, but it was weak last week. Remember, when something goes on a rampage, it always mean reverts. Everything mean reverts. And Bitcoin, you can see its bottom right-hand side of the chart there being outperformed by pretty much most things as well. And another crazy statistic, which is a little, to some people, especially the Bitcoin maxis, is a bit frightening. But now ETFs and treasury companies now hold 11% of all Bitcoin. And this all happened just over the last couple of years. Saylor was in first, granted, but nobody else really followed him until the last six to 9 months, and the ETFs over the last year and a half. So this is crazy to think that more than 10% of the total supply is in the hands of ETFs and treasuries. And this is probably going to be on lockdown forever. And also this assumes 21 million Bitcoin. Of course, there'll never be more than 15 million. So when you look at that, it's more like nearly 15%, not 11%. And this will only continue to grow. In fact, look at the red growth of the ETFs and the public companies, both at the same time, kicking off, guess when? At the beginning of the new, at the time of the election. That's when everybody kind of went nuts into crypto because the US president is crypto friendly. So that explains that. And I thought this was funny too, a little bit of serendipity here. I always talk about the Solana black hole, but never did I imagine seeing a top 3 trenders being black hole and Solana with Ivan's Pudgy Penguins in the middle. Again, these are the top trending tokens for the week. I thought, I have no idea what black hole is, but I like the name. Anywho, it looks like they cribbed the Grok logo too. Anywho, Robinhood, another top performing stock, has just announced not only can you buy Sol and ETH on their platform, but now they give you staking returns to earn. The return on Solana 7.43% APY and ETH up to 2.54% APY. I'm not sure why ETH says 7.43% and ETH says up to 2.54%. But anyway, you get triple the return on Solana staking. And a lot of people, by the way, were concerned about this because that means I have to pay taxes on my returns. Well, it depends. If you're on Robinhood in a retirement account, no, you don't. If it's a taxable account, yes, you do. Anyhow, stocks over the last 7 days, you can see a couple of cool things. One, Microsoft flat, NVIDIA down. Again, NVIDIA went on a rampage. In April, NVIDIA was at 88. It more than doubled in 12 weeks. That's how fast things move. Tesla up 5% for the week. Google nearly 5% for the week. Google have earnings too. Apple 2.28%. Amazon flat as well. So all good in the hood over there. Fear and greed is nearly the same as crypto. 72 for stocks. And treasuries are on fire. Of course, 2 weeks ago, MicroStrategy broke 600,000 Bitcoin. Now they're nearly 608,000. Marathon just over 50K right now. CEP 37K. That SPAC will convert at the end of the year. So be careful how you calculate the NAV premium on that one, ladies and gentlemen. And Riot, nearly 20,000 Bitcoin. CleanSpark, 12.6. And the miners have been performing quite well too. Galaxy, 12,800. Obviously, the Galaxy purchase of like 80,000 Bitcoin from some old wallet is not reflected here. I personally think it's gone into their OTC desk and they're going to OTC that Bitcoin out, of course, at a charge, at a premium. So for those of you who are hoping the OTC desks would run empty, no, maybe not. But I will verify that over the next day or two. And Saylor is stretching it. Interesting one. They have yet a new way of raising money, a new preferred stock. This is the fourth one. And unlike fixed bonds, it has a variable rate that acts like a stretchy tool to avoid price swings. So instead of the stock going from, say, $90 to $120 a share, they'll keep it at like $100 a share by modifying the actual returns. And a lot of people are calling it a money market, which typically invests in short-term stuff like government bonds. Instead, no, it's a preferred stock designed to mimic a money market account, but they'll have a short-term yield of around 9%, but it's backed by Bitcoin. That's it. And it is an IPO, and select investors will have access to it as well. But remember, their customers for these types of products are not retail investors that want the 9%. Some people do buy it, but these are typical like banks and insurance companies, big banks, Morgan Stanley, Barclays, and insurance companies, whoever they are, AXA and others, will be buying these because they need to allocate their reserves for different things into treasuries by law. They can't YOLO into stocks. Speaking of pensions as well, this is the 14th largest pension. I think Pennsylvania is the state. I got Ohio. I think it's Ohio. I always got Ohio and Pennsylvania confused. They got about $120 billion in pension funds. And what they did, I think they've been looking at the Tesla robotaxi release, and they decided, you know what? Uber and Lyft days are numbered. They had a big bag of Lyft. They sold their Lyft and they bought MicroStrategy and Palantir. So interesting. They are getting into, shout out to this Ohio pension fund, the two big narratives, AI and crypto. You see, I'm 4 or 5 years ago, I was the only one talking about these two narratives, and now everybody's doing it. So I'm so happy. I'm glad we picked the right narratives and picked them early. Narratives are everything. And speaking of AI, the rate of change, which is the most important thing. We always talk about rate of change, and so does Elon Musk. But Grok 4 today is smarter than it was a few days ago. It's learning. The continuous improvement feels to Elon Musk like AGI. And what's even crazier is nothing comes close to the amount of GPUs that they have running coherently at the same time today. They have 230,000 GPUs running in Colossus 1. They will go live in a few weeks with Colossus 2, which will be more than twice the size at 550,000, plus more powerful GPUs. There'll be GB200s and GB300s, and there's some Dojo in there too. And XAI is unmatched in speed. Nothing is even close. Nothing has the compute. These guys will run all of AI for the planet, but it gets wilder too. The goal is 50 million GPUs of H100 equivalents. And if they come out with a H500 that's 5 times better than the H100, then maybe they only need 10 million of them. Either way, it will be a lot of processing power, a lot of compute, and all of this will be online within 5 years. So again, the world is changing very fast. Be ready, everybody. These things will be able to outthink everybody. And final one, meme of the day. I thought this was important because I'm seeing lots of signs of Marxism and socialism and communism. But the big question is, okay, for all of those, for communism, if the ideas are so good, they are so good, the ideas, that they are mandatory. So you don't want communism or Marxism. So with that, it was kind of a spicy one today, but I feel spicy. Hope you all enjoy the show. All of these videos are turned into podcasts and emails, so you can listen to them again at the gym or read all the slides, see all the slides, have them all for your files. Thanks to the team that does that. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Appreciate everybody here. Thank you, B-Man. Thank you, Shawnee, K8, TND Tesla, everybody as well. And a shout out to Dr. Pepper again, Crypto Last Outpost, Cern Dragon, Gion, French Streamer, Zeno, and Metageist, and Piper up there in Canada. Hope everybody's well. See you all tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday, middle of the week, hump day. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.